If you're not living in your truth, you're living a lie. We have felt uncomfortable in our own skin, and we know that our actions don't really match up of what we're feeling on the inside. That's living a lie. Yoga teaches us how to live in our truth, how to stand firm in our truth. This is Satya. This is what we're going to get into. Woo! This is deep. Let's go. So you've been to a few or maybe many yoga classes and you are hooked. Somehow you feel better, kinder, more connected to yourself and those around you. Your friends view you as a hippie now, and your parents, well, they think it's a phase. Regardless, when you are on your mat, you are home. Yoga teachers and students, come learn how yoga can help you navigate the daily grind, breakups, your anxiety from a place of clarity and compassion. Welcome to the Modern Yogi podcast, hosted by me, Laura Siljander. Misfits, earthlings, yogis, take a deep breath, check in to see how you're doing, body, mind, and soul, because you have arrived. Yogis, this episode is brought to you by my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel. It's called The Modern Yogi. It's got all my podcasts on there, but y'all usually listen to me on Spotify, iTunes, or Stitcher. But I also have some yoga flows on there if you want it. I got some meditations on there if you want it. It is a ton of resources if you want it. I have full classes on there. Hour and a half classes from start to finish. Feel free to practice with me. Subscribe if you want to, but just go to YouTube. It's The Modern Yogi. That's the channel. I'll see you there. Yogis, misfits, earthlings, you have spoken. You want yoga philosophy, and I'm here to give it to you. All right, got some options for you. Option 1, press pause. Go back to the episode before this called Ahimsa. Listen to the first one. If you don't want to do that because you're like, no, I'm committed, I'm here, I want to do this, that's fine. Listen to this one and then listen to Ahimsa. In that episode, I covered a little bit about Patanjali and the Yoga Sutras and the 8 limbs of yoga. So before we dive into that, I would like to say one thing, just a little disclaimer. These ancient books, these ancient texts that I have gathered and have read and have researched, and every time I read a sutra, again, I find a new truth in it. Almost every time. Okay, who am I kidding? Almost every time. So please, this is where I am at right now in my research, in my own svidhyaya, my own self-study of these texts. Again, it's almost like if you are a Christian and you read the Bible and you'll read the same verse like over and over and over again. And sometimes the light bulb just goes off. You're like, oh, I get it now. And a new truth is unveiled for you. That's what happens when I dive into these texts. So this is where I'm at now. I bet you in like a year, it's going to be even more involved. But this is going to be the first series on the 8 limbs of yoga. So how to live like a yogi, yogic lifestyle. Let's get into this. Yes. So just to review the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, very old book. There's 196 lessons in here that Patanjali says this is how you live a life as compassionately as you can, with as much clarity as you can, and ultimately if you want to achieve enlightenment, bliss, samadhi, because life is suffering. He says that in the beginning, that life will bring you pain. Life will hurt sometimes. And this is how you can navigate it. And the first idea, which is interesting because when you think about yoga, you think about postures, right? You think about twisting pretzel shapes and balancing on your hands and stress relief and breathing and all of those things. But the first thing that Patanjali talks about with yoga is the mind. He talks about samadhi. Now, not to control your thoughts. I don't think that's what he was getting at. You don't do yoga to control your thoughts. However, you practice yoga so your thoughts don't control you. Have you ever gotten so angry and done something that you really regret, or say something that you really regret when your emotions were so heightened? So that's what we mean by our thoughts not controlling our actions. And Patanjali started off with saying, Ishvara Pranidhana, you surrender your life to the divine. You surrender your life to God. Now, don't turn this off yet. Don't turn this off yet if that doesn't resonate with you. Because to be honest, I've been around religion my whole life and that doesn't even resonate with me. I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to surrender my whole life to something that I can't see or touch. And I'm not saying just have blind faith here. No. But Patanjali says, yep, I know, that's hard. So here are the 8 limbs of yoga. He also goes through something called Kriya Yoga, which I'll go through that at a later time. But I really want to focus on the 8 limbs of yoga. Patanjali says, okay, so you can't surrender it all to God. You can't mitigate your suffering that way. Here are the 8 limbs of yoga. And the 8 limbs of yoga start off with the yamas, niyamas, and that's where we're going to spend a lot of time. And then we go into asana, which are the postures, pranayama, which is the breathing. And then there are 4 levels of meditation or 4 levels of consciousness. And so we're going to get through all of that. And it's going to be a long series. It's going to be awesome. And we're going to learn a lot about how we can navigate hard times, how we can navigate good times, but not grasp and try to control them. We started off with the first yama last episode, which was ahimsa, non-harming yourself, not harming your internal environment with your thoughts, not harming other people. And some people find non-harming their own way. Vegans, vegetarians, people who recycle, people who shop secondhand, people only shop at places where they know it's ethically sourced. You practice ahimsa on your mat by not forcing your body into postures. You don't do that. You pay attention to your body. You tune into that inner teacher so you don't hurt yourself. So if you want that ahimsa talk again, just go back and listen to that episode. But that was like a really fast ahimsa talk we just had. So the yamas, that's the first limb of yoga. And ahimsa, not harming compassion, is the first yama. I don't think that this was just a coincidence. To build a yogic lifestyle are the yamas and the niyamas, the first 2 limbs of yoga. And to have the first one being compassion makes perfect sense. So again, the yamas, I don't know if I went over this or not, but they're traditionally known as social ethics or restraints. I don't really like this. When I hear restraints, I think of like handcuffs. No, thanks. I don't want to practice something with handcuffs. When I started to dive into the Yoga Sutras further, I noticed that there was a different translation that I didn't see a lot in my research. I saw the yamas translated as regulation or your moral compass. Regulation or your moral compass. I like that better. Regulation. So if you know the word pranayama, it's breathing, regulation, breath techniques, it's regulation. So we're regulating our actions, just like in the yamas, the first one is ahimsa, we're regulating our harming. I'm going to get through all of the yamas and you're going to notice that ahimsa is in every one of them. So you just know that that's going to be an overlap. But the second yama, or the second path of regulation in our lives as yogis, is Satya. Satya, Satya, truthfulness, to think, to speak, and to act with integrity. To think, to speak, and to act with integrity. Sounds good, right? There are 2 ways that I have found that I have seen Satya really stand out in patterns. One of them are you being truthful? Are you being honest when no one is looking? Are you being honest when you know you won't get caught? Now, this is tough. This is when you have like a snack bar at your workplace and you're like, oh, I'm really hungry, but I don't have any money. And you're like, but I could just grab this orange. I know it's 25 cents, but I don't have 25 cents. I'll give them 25 cents tomorrow. This is when that moral compass comes into play. Are you going to take the orange and not pay for it? Are you going to take the orange and pay for it tomorrow? Are you going to forget to pay for it? That's your moral compass. Satya is living your truth in this way. Now, yoga asks you, this practice asks you to observe what's happening in your mind as you go through this. Yoga asks you to pause and say, is this living your truth? If you're like, yeah, I'm going to bring my quarter, I'm going to pay for it tomorrow. Then yoga says, hey, you took the time to look at it? Okay, that's your Satya. Are you practicing ahimsa with that? Is there harming in this? So see how they kind of overlap in that way. Small or white lies. Automatic lies to alleviate causing someone pain or hurt. When your beautiful roommate walks down the stairs, you're like, what's she wearing? And she says, do I look good? And you're like, you look wonderful. Because you want to alleviate her pain maybe. Our yoga practice asks, are you living your truth? But yoga also says practice ahimsa. So don't say something like, you look like crap. That is not what yoga is saying, is now you have the green light to be a jerk to everyone. No, that is not what Satya means. You can just go around and like point your finger and yell at your truth, because are you practicing ahimsa there? That's that balancing act of non-harming and truthfulness. It's an art. It takes time to cultivate. You will mess this up. I continue to mess this up. But can you balance non-harming and truth? Can you form your words in a way that speaks your truth without lying, but with gentleness, with compassion? Would you like an example? Your roommate comes down and let's just say it's just not, it's just not working in your mind. It's just not working. And she says, how do I look? Do I look good? Speaking your truth could be turning that around and being like, well, do you feel like you look good? And she's like, well, I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. You could say, who cares what I think? Do you feel good in what you're wearing? And she may say, yeah, I feel great. You're like, great. There was no lying there. Were you gentle? Yes. That's a way you can do that. Give the power back over to the person who's asking for it. Also, these little white lies that we tell. I was reading an article in Yoga International about this, and there's a quote that says, when we lie, we disconnect from our higher self. Our minds become confused, and we cannot trust ourselves. When you tell too many little lies, you can't trust yourself anymore because you forget what you lied about. So that's a way to look at Satya. I found looking at Satya at a different angle even more fruitful. And you may really resonate with the first way of looking at, are you being truthful, or maybe the second one. So you pick and choose. Who am I to tell you your truth, right? The second way to look at it, are you living your Satya, or are you hiding or following the expectations of others around you? Are you hiding or following society? Are you just following along with your friend group? This one's tough. As a gay woman and growing up in a very conservative Republican Christian household, talk about living a lie. So are you living your Satya, or are you hiding? Let's start here with your family's expectations. Your family's expectations for you is to go off to college and study something in the medical field or law, to go get married to someone who has money, to have kids. And if you're like, that is not my I want to live in a van. I want to travel the world. I don't need a ton of money. Do you see that disconnection? Of our family systems want us to be safe. They come at this of, we want you to be safe. We want you to be quote unquote successful. This usually isn't coming from a selfish place. Now it can be. There are those parents or those guardians who are asking you to live the lives that they never could. So they put a lot of pressure and expectations on you, and you feel responsible to live up to it. But it isn't your truth, because you have that internal conflict of, I don't really care what I'm studying here. This doesn't feel right to me. This doesn't light me up. This doesn't speak to me on a soul level. I'm just doing it just to do it. So that's a place where you can start to think about, does what my parents or my guardians, the way that they brought me up, is that my truth? Is their religion my truth? Is my sexuality my truth? Is my gender my truth? Is driving this car, because my family said it was awesome, my truth? Are my clothes that I'm wearing my truth? It all comes down to, is this my truth? Societal pressures. I'm from the States. I know I've got people listening from all over the world. What's your society? What's your culture telling you? I can tell you in my culture that being really like fit and long, thick hair and curves in just the right spots, being sexy, having awesome Instagram pictures, that is glorified in my country, glorified in my culture. To have the perfect house, the perfect hair, the perfect skin, perfect body, perfect spouse. But holy smokes, that is not my truth at all. I mean, some of you don't know this. I have armpit hair. In the States, that's not cool. I reach up on the top shelf in the grocery store to get my ketchup, and I see the dirtiest look of the woman next to me. I was trying on wedding dresses once, and I remember I had to lift my arms up so she could strap me in, zipper me up, And the look on her face when she saw my armpit hair was just, I laugh, but at first it took like a lot of courage to do that because I was stepping into my truth. My culture says I have to look and do this. And I said, that doesn't feel right. What doesn't feel right to you? Is it the house you're living in? I mean, I just pointed out like some silly thing like body hair. But taking that step and living in my truth and being okay with it took time. It took courage. But it took me reading about Satya to say, I really want to step into this. I don't want to live a lie. I want my life to be clear. I want compassion. I want truth. And shaving my armpits ain't my truth. What's your truth here? What are these societal expectations that are being pressed on you? Maybe you have some internal conflict with that. Maybe that's something to think about. Maybe that's something to move and breathe with on your yoga mat. Maybe that's something to journal about. Maybe that's something that you bring up to your coach or therapist, or maybe a trusted partner, friend. Some of you are in college and you make new friend groups. Some of you are in your 30s and you're considered the young professional, making new friend groups. Some of you are moms, trying to fit in with the other moms. And a lot of times, we'll just go with the flow of our friend group, even though we know we don't really fit in there. Now, I'm not saying like throw up the finger and say, I'm out, homies. I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying to hurt them with your words and say that it's your truth. Remember that ahimsa. But it's to question and then to live in that way. Satya is when you live and speak in your truth with ahimsa, even when the truth makes you shake in your shoes. Y'all, when I came out to my family as a lesbian, woo, that made me shake in my shoes. And it was a different kind of internal conflict. But that as soon as that resolved, it took a while. As soon as that resolved, I'm now living more in my truth than I ever have. And I'm around those who are around me support me rather than the other. Satya calls you to live and speak and act with authenticity. This is a choice that we make every single day. Every single day. How do I want to wear my hair today? Not what society is telling me, not what my friend group says is cool. What do I want? What do I want to eat today? Not what society is telling me, not what my mama is telling me to eat. What do I want? What will nurture me? What is my truth? It's a choice we make every single day, and they're little. They start off really, really little. I have a podcast about this, another one about really just embracing this misfit idea, this being authentic idea. It's episode 20 called Misfits. Have a listen if you want. Give some practical tips and tricks for being a misfit and living that truth. It takes courage. It takes tapas, strength, commitment to live your truth. But man, is it worth it? All right, so that was the second yama or regulation. And just a quick review. We've got Patanjali, who wrote the Yoga Sutras, who said, here's the 8 limbs of yoga. And within the 8 limbs, the first 2 are the yamas and the niyamas. And that's how to live a yogic lifestyle. There are 10 principles that we're going to go over. We went over the first one, which was ahimsa, non-harming and compassion. And then we went through Satya, living your truth. Awesome. Yogis, practice that compassion with your thoughts. Starts with you, starts with your thoughts. Practice compassion with that speech. Practice that compassion with your actions. I'll talk to you soon. Shalom and meow.